What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another week in the coronavirus stuff that's going on. We are officially in, maybe week 2 at this point, 2.5, of where a lot of states are kind of shutting down and people are inside annoying their neighbors, annoying their significant others and their children, and life is just crazy. But if you're hearing this right now, which you should be, we are here for another episode. We're here on the Classic Buffalo podcast. I, Ryan, interview everyday people on their stories surrounding mental health. Everything from sports to fashion to photography to entrepreneurship to I like painting and I want to talk about painting. Or I like ducks. Let's talk about ducks. We do that here on this podcast. And today is no different. Today is episode 52. The equivalent, if we did one every week, it would be a whole year. Boom. Today we're interviewing somebody named Courtney Scott, and we celebrate some amazing medical news that she heard. She's been going through a lot of different things in these last couple months and 2 years. A lot of different tests to figure out what's wrong, what's going on, and lots of different types of treatment. We get to detail the story of Courtney's journey to get into music, why she dropped out of college, her experience with mental health, how she's handling all of this coronavirus stuff, just like everybody else. And we get to talk a little bit about this specific news and what this next chapter of her life could look like. So without further ado, let's get into today's episode where I, Ryan, interview Courtney Scott. Here we go. Joining me this Sunday is Courtney Scott. What's up, Courtney?
Hey.
Welcome to the Danger Zone. Danger Zone. Danger Zone.
I'm ready.
Thoughts on Top Gun? Yay or nay? Good movie.
Yay. It's a good one.
Did you know they're coming out with Top Gun 2?
I did not know that.
Yeah, I don't know what it's going to be about, but it's. What are your thoughts on sequels? Because, like, it's like, is it going to be a good movie?
It depends. Sometimes they're necessary. Sometimes they're not.
Good sequels.
Toy Story.
Ooh.
I mean, did they need to make like 4 of them? Probably not. But it's a good movie.
Yeah.
But then I'm thinking movies like Taken.
Yes.
I absolutely did not need a sequel, and I'm very passionate about the first movie, so that's saying a lot.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, why do they keep taking? That's such a dumb move on the bad guy's part, though. Like, why do you keep taking Liam Neeson's family?
You don't mess with Liam Neeson. That's just kind of a known fact.
Right, and he's played like God, like before. Like, I think it was the voice of Aslan. I think.
Yes, he was.
What's your favorite movie of all time? That's our first 5 question.
The first answer that comes to my head is Into the Wild. I've seen that movie so many times, and I couldn't tell you what it is that I like about it so much, but I love it.
Was it a book? Am I thinking of the right one? The one that's like Hatchet?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, man. Yeah. I'm impressed by my... Sorry. I don't think I would have known that.
You didn't know you had that in you.
Was that the follow-up to Hatchet? I think.
I feel like I should know that, but I don't.
Because I think I think like what Hatchet was like, that one dude gets stranded or whatever. Then he comes back to with some guy, and then that guy like either dies or I can't remember, but it's sort of like goes to show a reporter or a journalist or whatever how he did it, and then now he has to basically do it twice.
Yeah.
Something like that.
I don't know. I like kind of not weird movies, but I like that one. Moonrise Kingdom is a great one.
I haven't heard of that one.
You should watch it. It's a good one.
What's it about?
I can't ruin it for you.
Oh, good point. Is it
no. You have to go into it blindly. That's always my rule. If someone's never seen a movie, I can't tell them anything about it because you can't have any preconceptions.
I thought there was one movie where like I went to the library to go get like a free movie or something like that, and or just to get some movies. And I was like, oh, this looks funny. And I think it was like The Proposal with, I think, Ryan Reynolds and Jennifer Lopez, maybe? But I was like, I just like accidentally rented a rom-com. Just didn't know. I was like, this is the fourth time this has happened.
It's not a bad thing. They put Ryan Reynolds on the cover. They know someone's going to pick it up, you know?
Yeah, right.
It happens.
I actually really like him as an actor, more so because I like Deadpool.
He's a good actor. I like actors like that have, you know, they can do any genre. They can, I don't know, it's impressive.
Yeah. Number 2, what is your favorite fictional animal?
I don't know why my first thought is a liger, only because I'm thinking of Napoleon Dynamite.
Yeah.
I used to watch that movie religiously when I was younger, and so that's just the first thing that pops into my mind. I would be absolutely terrified of it, but I think it would be kind of cool.
What's your most used emoji?
I feel like it changes, like by the week. Right now, I don't know why I just discovered it, but it's like the little guy with the red face and his tongue sticking out like he's sweating.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know why. I just think it's funny, and I feel like it's a reaction to everything. I don't know. I just think he's funny.
It's getting hot out here. Yeah, you're in Phoenix, so yeah.
It's very fitting for Phoenix.
How would what is it like living in Arizona? Is it as hot as everybody says it is?
Yes, and well,
more
yes. The thing that's hard to explain to people is, yes, it's hot because it gets, 120, which, yes, that's hot. But for me, coming from Alabama, where it can get to be 90-something degrees, but 100% humidity, there's no humidity here in Arizona. And I don't think people here understand how lucky they are that we don't have it. Because I think, to me, that makes all the difference. It's
right.
I'll be like everybody else and say, well, it's a dry heat, but it is, and it's not that bad. You get used to it.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
I don't know why I remember so distinctly in kindergarten, I thought I wanted to be a firefighter. Just because my kindergarten teacher's husband was a firefighter, and I thought he was the coolest person ever. And then I think that phase lasted a year. And for a really long time, I thought I wanted to go to school to be like a vet tech. Yeah.
What's the difference between that and a veterinarian?
Honestly, I don't know. I should have
get that far.
I didn't get that far. I just knew I thought I wanted to work with animals. Yeah. And my mom, I remember we had a conversation at some point, and she said, there's no way, because in my mind, that meant that I just got to like pet animals all day because I was young. And she said, that it's not always good. You see a lot of sick animals, and it's not always an easy job. And we realized that I'm too empathetic for that job. Yeah. It would have been too scarring. So I can't handle the good days would be great. The bad days would not. I couldn't do it. So
yeah, I feel like maybe you'd be better at like a zoo,
Yeah.
I
don't know. Zoos are kind of depressing.
Oh, I guess. I just like if vet tech, like they might get sick and you might have to put them down.
Yeah.
It seems more of a fun environment, I suppose. But yeah,
that's true.
You're in captivity, so yeah. You get you. You win and you lose some. Yeah,
true.
If you got to be in any reality TV show, what would you be in?
I don't know if does Food Network count?
Yeah, sure. Like Chopped.
Yeah, well, maybe not Chopped, because if Food Network counts, then I'm gonna say
that's a game. That's more like game show. Reality TV would be like Kardashians, Big Brother, Survivor, Bachelor.
Because I don't really watch a lot of reality TV, so my options are limited on what I know.
I'll let you pick game show.
Beat Bobby Flay.
Wow.
Only because I don't know why I feel the need to say this, but Bobby Flay is like my dad crush. I don't know why, but I don't know that I would even, if I were in the same kitchen as him, I don't know if I'd even be able to cook, but anything on Food Network I would be good with.
Yeah, if you ever watch the kids, those kid shows, like the kids cooking, I always feel just like I was so behind. Like I still am for 26, but I still feel like, the kids, what they can cook at that young age.
Oh, yeah. It makes me feel really good about myself. the ingredients that I don't even know what that is, and they're more power to them. I wish I could have done that when I was little, but I definitely was not.
This is a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I cut the crust off.
That was probably the extent of my abilities when I was that age. Maybe throw a pack of ramen in the microwave under supervision, but not much outside of that.
There's so much actual recipes and like strategy that goes into ramen. It's like if you start going into I'm sure there's even a Reddit about it, but like how to season it, like how long do you actually put it in the microwave, the wattage of the microwave. I was just like, wow.
This is not, I paid 25 cents for it. I don't expect, my expectations aren't super high.
So let's get into your story. You were born in Kansas.
Yes. Do
you have an accent or any form? I mean, like, because you ended up in Alabama in 7th grade. But, like, do you have any form of, I mean, I don't really notice it necessarily now, but do people think you have an accent?
No. And for some reason, that's a big disappointment to people when they meet me or if we've talked beforehand and they know that I moved here from Alabama. I don't know what they expect.
Yeah.
But I think maybe because the age that I moved there, I kind of already developed, you're not as impressionable. And I say y'all a lot, but I also feel like everybody kind of does that now. It's a lot more common. But if I go back to visit and I'm there long enough, or I'm around my very southern family, it kind of tends to come out. But I don't really have much of an accent, I don't think.
Yeah, same. I say y'all a lot, Florida.
Well, there's the debate, is Florida a part of the South or not?
Yeah. It has like no culture.
That's true.
Miami's weird because Miami like feels legit like Latin America when I was there.
I've never been to Miami. I've always wanted to go just to experience it, to see what it's like, because I've heard it's wild.
It's so wild. No. I ordered there was an area of town that just speaks only Spanish. So I just like ordered myself, like I had lunch in the Spanish district.
That sounds so much fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a part of my day trip. I went to because I was about to move back to Indiana, and I was like, man, I don't know if I'll ever be able to go to Key West or just have an opportunity to do that. So I was like, I'm going to drive to Miami 3 hours away, have lunch in Miami, see the Miami Heat Stadium, just look around and stuff, then keep going, go all the way to Key West. And like I'm just making up a number. I think it's maybe 20 miles, but it's just a one-lane road for 20 miles. So it's like it takes you an hour and a half, but it's really only like 20 miles. It's like just because you have to go between 20 and 40 miles an hour, like super slow. But yeah. And then I got like dinner on there, and it's like drove back in the same day. So it was like it's like a 10-hour worth of driving in one day.
But sometimes you just need that. It's fun to just see new things, and especially when you're by yourself, you don't have anybody else telling you where to go. It can be really interesting.
Yeah. So you are into sports at all? I think you mentioned to me as well, like kind of you're into the sports ball, or at least you were growing up.
I was growing up.
What was your sport of choice?
I kind of did a little bit of everything. My mom is a personal trainer, so it was kind of instilled at a very young age that both my brother and I were involved in sports from the time that we could be. So, no, I'd say my favorite at the very end was probably volleyball, was that I ended up liking the most out of everything, and I stuck with that all the way through high school.
How tall are you?
I have been lied to my whole life.
What does that mean?
I always thought, we were like, oh, she's like 5'11-ish, maybe 6 foot. And we found out that's not true. I'm right at 5'10".
Okay.
Ish, which is accurate, I know, because I go to the doctor all the time. So we
do one of those, like, it's 5'10" and 1/4.
When we were trying out for like sports teams and stuff, we would always say, my mom was like, put the half inch, they need to know. It's like, 5'10" and 3/4. Like 3/4 inch really doesn't make a difference, but I guess it looks good on paper.
So you were like spiking in front.
Yeah, that was where I was always put every single time.
Right. Yeah, I just started getting into volleyball, like myself, like doing rec stuff, and it's been like, there's a clear, like, some people are there to have fun, and some people have formations and like the knee pads, and they're like, hey, like, it just seemed like every time I do something, it was like wrong, or like, hey, next time set it up higher, do this something. Oh, okay, sorry. Just trying to hit it over.
Yeah, that's the thing is I don't know, from the outside, I'm sure it looks like it's not that hard, but there's a lot of mechanics that go into it, and it's intense, but I loved it. I always had a really fun time with it.
Yeah, what's your like favorite memory from sports?
I was on a traveling club team for volleyball. I did that for a couple of years. And
where'd you travel to?
It was more, we did like tournaments around the Southeast.
Okay.
So, being in Alabama, we would go to like Nashville or Atlanta or, Birmingham. So we kind of just, you're not traveling super far, but I think it was just always fun having that group of people that you were always going to new places, and like, we're all staying in a hotel room together and like exploring. And you spend a lot of time. It was fun.
Did you ever hit anyone in the face on accident with the ball?
Yes. And I have also been hit in the face.
Oh, it's the worst.
Volleyball wasn't as bad. I do remember I've been hit in the face with softball before.
Oh no.
That was it was not fun.
Was someone throwing the ball at you, or was it like a pitch, like to get?
When I played, I was a pitcher.
Okay.
And I remember we were in a batting cage, and I was pitching to my friend, and she is, I'm sure she still is, incredibly strong. I've never seen an arm on anyone like she has. And so they had me in there pitching to her, and I had a net in front of me so that I was supposed to be when I pitched, and I kind of ducked behind so I didn't get hit in the face, and my reflexes aren't great. And I didn't move fast enough, and she smacked that ball so hard, and it kind of ricocheted off the metal pole that was on the net, and it just I really didn't want to go back after that. Yeah,
that was it.
And that's what ruined that sport for me. That one experience.
So you moved to Alabama in 7th grade, which moving like from Kansas to Alabama, or just moving across the country could be really difficult, like at any point in your life, even if you were to do it like now in your 20s and 30s. Especially like early teens. And for me, moving from Florida to Indiana was like earth shattering. Like trying to get through 7th grade was just like I put my head down. It was survival mode. Like everything was such a blur. Like, can you talk a little bit about that whole experience of moving?
Earth-shattering, I think, is an accurate way to describe it. Because I was coming from a super, super small town. So I had grown up with the same group of people, and everybody knew everyone. And it was, like I said, just a really small place. And then moving across the country where I didn't know anyone. We didn't even have family in Alabama, and throw that in with it being 7th grade when your life is already not fun. It was hard because the school that I ended up going to was very, very different than what I was used to. It was very cliquish, and I don't know, I think it was just my first experience with the mean girls and people, really like popularity groups, which we didn't have where I was growing up. So that was very much a culture shock for me. Yeah, so I think same thing. It was just kind of my only goal was to make it out of this in one piece and just try to keep to myself. And we did it. Barely, but yeah, it just wasn't a very fun time. But it's, no one ever has a fun time at that age. I don't think.
And if they have something else to deal with,
Yeah.
Did you have braces? It's a random question, but I had 3 rounds of braces.
I did not.
You avoided the braces. Nice.
Somehow.
Retainer? Did you have anything?
No. Back when they did spacers and stuff like that, yeah. I had those.
Okay.
I don't know how I made it out without braces, because I have, even now, in my mid-late 20s, I have a gap in between my 2 front teeth, and there's some teeth that aren't entirely straight. So I don't know if my parents were just no. I'm not upset about it, but yeah, I don't.
Right.
All of my friends had braces, and I, at the time, almost felt left out. I was kind of upset that I didn't have them.
Left out of the braces.
I know, and now looking back, I wish I could. I don't know that I would subject myself to that. I've heard too many horror stories to know it's not fun.
Invisalign or something like that.
Yeah, and it's about, with the technology they have now, I would opt for something different, probably.
Right.
If it were necessary.
When did you pick up a guitar?
Either 8th grade or my freshman year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
I was in band in elementary and middle school. I played the clarinet. I knew how to read music, and I really liked it. I just kind of wanted to try something different. Playing clarinet is not the coolest thing in the world when you're in middle school. So I was like, well, what's the next best thing? We'll just pick up a guitar. It's easy. Learning was a process, but I started taking lessons, and the great thing now is you can go to YouTube and learn literally any song you want. So not as hard as people think it is. Anyone can do it.
Oasis, Wonderwall.
Oh yeah, that's because I haven't picked it up in a while, but that's one of the songs I'm pretty sure is engraved in my fingers. I will never be able to forget how to play that song.
Yeah. I feel like once you can start to do an instrument, the second you walk in a room that the instrument's in, they're like, oh, she can play. Oh, hey, pick up the piano, or play the piano, or hey, play the guitar. Because you become the guitar player, in the social group, or you become the piano person.
Oh yeah, I have friends that are like that. That's kind of, I'm not so much that person because I'm not very good.
Yeah.
And
it's just fun for you.
Yeah, but I have friends that's kind of their thing. They play guitar, so if there's ever a gathering, we have a bunch of friends over and there's a guitar, hey, you should pick that up and play. And so we're just all standing in a circle around someone watching them play Sweet Home Alabama or something. It's, I don't know. Yeah, I'm definitely not known as that person, which is okay with me.
Yeah, right. When someone asks you, what do you do? How would you answer that? I know things are a little bit different given the circumstances that we'll talk about in a little bit,
Yeah.
as to what you're literally doing from day to day. But you say hey, I'm a musician, because I don't know. I guess maybe you don't have one of those, right?
Not really. I mean, like you said, I'm not doing as much right now, but like I'm working retail management, which isn't super exciting, and I feel like it's not.
Yeah, here's a better question. What if I was to ask you, what are you passionate about? What would you say?
I don't want to be really cheesy and cliche and say that I'm just passionate about doing what I love, because that really doesn't make sense. But I don't know, just finding things like with music or with writing, or just kind of finding things that I really love. That answer really didn't make sense now that I think about it.
Well, no, it's good because you're in pursuit of passion, and you don't necessarily know what those are. You're passionate to find those things out.
Yeah.
You know, there's so much pressure to figure that out, but we also don't have to have one passion. You know.
Yeah.
Like for you, it's nature. I know when you talked to me previously in other conversations, you've always talked about the pull you feel while hiking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, being in Arizona, like that's a cool, like you're passionate about nature.
Yeah. Something that a lot of people experience, and that's definitely a pressure that I've felt, you know, because people are asking you while you're still in high school, like, oh, what are you doing in college? What are you doing after, are you getting a degree? Are you getting married? Are you doing this and this? And I feel like you kind of drill that into people's heads that they have to have this set plan, and they can only have one thing to look forward to, and it can be hard. I feel like it definitely limits people to what they feel like. I don't know, I always felt that I couldn't be passionate about music because when I told people that's what I wanted to do with my life, they said, well, that's not realistic. You won't make money doing that. You won't. I think it's important to find things that you are passionate about, because if you are passionate about it, you'll find a way to make it work.
Yeah, what do you want to do with music? Like if you could do anything.
For a long time, I thought I just wanted to kind of be on the backside of things, and because I would never be on the performance side of it. Maybe like artist management or just something behind the scenes. And,
yeah.
Fortunately, I have a lot of friends that are full-time musicians. That's what they do for a living. And so being around them and kind of seeing, I don't think people realize all the things that go on behind the scenes. All the people that aren't really in the spotlight that are really making everything work. And I have a lot of respect for those people, and I've always thought that it would be something really cool to kind of be a part of that process without having to be the face of it, I guess.
Yeah. I had somebody on the podcast a while ago who was doing like concert management and sometimes artist management, but like you don't have to just be on stage to be a part of the music industry.
It's such a vast industry, and the people you meet it's crazy. The networking, and it's a very hard industry, but I feel like every industry is. But as long as you get involved with the right people, I think it can be a really cool thing.
So you went to school for music. Talk about like kind of the late high school, being in Alabama now, like you decided to go to college for music. Like talk about that process and kind of what happened to college.
Yeah, I kind of went back and forth towards the end of my high school career if I wanted to go to college, and it kind of ties back to that, the pressure of everyone else was going, and of course, parents want you to go, and so I kind of felt like, okay, well, I need to go, so I tried to at least pick something that I really loved, and just doing a bunch of research and kind of figuring out what the options were, I ended up going to a 4-year university in Huntsville. majoring in music business. And with that university, anyone in the music program, regardless of what field it was, you had to have a minor in performance, which I was not told before I signed up. So I was doing business classes and learning about, all the software that they use. And so you kind of get to learn everything with music business. It's a pretty general thing. So you kind of get to dip your toes into every part of it. And I had been playing guitar, which was fine, but then I showed up the first day because I had to be in an ensemble class. And I just remember the instructor saying, "That's not the right guitar." And I thought, "What do you mean? You told me I had to show up with a guitar." And he said, "No, this is classical guitar."
What?
So I had to completely, which you would think that they're pretty similar. They're not. The styles are completely different. So I had to relearn everything essentially. And it was an interesting first semester or two trying to figure out what I was doing.
Right. Yeah, I remember, I think it was like a couple days into college. So I went to college to get a degree in sports management. And I majored in PR and sports management with my minor. And I was like in the big lecture class, and we took the pre-test, like, should you be in PR? And that's probably like 100 people in this class or something like that, or it felt like it. And I was the only one in the whole class to like get under a 20, or it wasn't out of 100, but it was like, did anyone get under this? And I was like, the only one in the whole class. Yeah, please talk to us after. Like, you are not supposed to be in this major. So like day 2 of college was like, okay, well, I guess I'm doing sports management. And my whole college was just like, if you imagine what the like shitty fake classes all the athletes had to take, like who are there to play sports, like those were the classes I was taking. I was like, let's make a resume. And I was like, oh my God, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Let's write a 5-page paper on what's the best sports team of every league. And then it just was, everyone else was learning about biology and rocks and philosophy. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah, you're like, I'm paying a lot of money for this. What am I doing?
Yeah. I thought when I was like day 1, I was going to be on Sports Center, like to be into sports. And then like, next thing I know, by junior year, I had already done all the jobs. I'd already done all those internships and be like, oh, there's nothing else in this major that I would like to do, but it was too late. So I just like graduated to graduate. But, in your case, like, music's kind of always hung around. And, I think it's kind of TBD for you because you kind of might want to make it somewhat of a career someday. But, like for me, sports became like from my life and like career to like now I just kind of watch games sometimes, or I'll go to a Pacers game from here and there, or like where it's kind of just sort of for fun, And so I don't know, would you agree that's kind of like what music ended up becoming, at least at this point, not like you can't make it a career?
Yeah, and I felt so guilty about that for a while because I was like, I've spent so many years being so passionate about this, and I knew in my gut it was what I wanted to do. And then you kind of get there and you're like, oh, it's, they always say, it's not as glamorous as I thought it would be. And not even that, it just kind of, I feel like you almost get burnt out on it when you spend. And for me, that was kind of telling me, well, maybe it's not, maybe it wasn't the right thing for me because
Do you think burnout is a sign that we shouldn't be doing it a lot? Or do you think burnout is just something that everybody deals with? I've been confused about that for like ever.
Yeah.
Like, am I in the wrong career, or am I just, there's like a mental exercise that I'm missing, or like the formula is kind of wrong. It's sort of like I have half the sandwich right.
I don't know. I kind of see both sides of it because there are definitely things that I've done religiously and I get burnt out on them, and then I kind of step back from it for a while. And I kind of realized, oh, well, I was putting too much effort into this part of it, not this. And then you kind of figure out that perfect mix. But there's also other things that, and I've even had friends that have experienced that, that were so involved in something and it just became their life and it was all they thought about all the time, and then it just kind of, it takes the fun out of it. And when you don't enjoy doing it anymore, for some people, yeah, I guess that's a sign that maybe it is time to move on. But I don't know, I always try to kind of step back from it and just see the bigger picture of it, I guess, and figure out if there is something I can tweak to kind of relight that fire, I guess, is a way to say it. But I don't know, I like to trust my gut with things, and if it's telling me that maybe this isn't where I should be right now, then yeah, step away. Maybe I can come back to it. Or if I step away and then I don't even think about it anymore, then maybe it wasn't the right thing.
Mm-hmm. So you decided to drop out after about 2 years, due to mental health issues.
Yes.
Can you talk about a little bit of that?
Yeah, I went for about 2 years, and I had struggled with my mental health for many years prior to going to college, but it was something that was never really addressed because I didn't, I felt like there was such a stigma around it, and I didn't know who to talk to. And even if I did, I didn't know what I was supposed to say to them. I didn't know what their reaction would be. So I just kind of kept everything to myself. And then before I went into college, it was kind of the first time I talked to anyone about it. And talking to my doctor, we kind of figured out that maybe some things weren't as good as we thought they were. And so it's when we started with, medications and trying with therapy and different things, like coping mechanisms for it. And for me, I feel like once I started talking to people about it, it kind of opened the floodgates, and it became a lot more real because other people now knew about it.
Do you regret telling people at all, or kind of being as vulnerable as you were?
Yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
I was very, very scared.
Yeah.
To be honest with people, just because I didn't know what people were going to think. I didn't want people to treat me differently or look at me different. So in that sense, I think I regretted it at the time, but also no, because thinking current time, like where I'm at right now, if I would have never said anything to anybody, it would have been so much harder. Mm-hmm. And I just think to all, the years in middle school and all through high school, when that was all those years of never telling anyone, I know how bad I felt with everything just building up and feeling like I couldn't talk about it. So I'm definitely glad that I finally did say something. It wasn't easy.
Yep.
At all, but
for me, when I was opening up to some people, I think the more people I shared, the more I felt kind of hurt, or kind of start like, oh, that was the wrong person to share that with. Mm-hmm. But there were also people where it was like, this is such a relief and they get it.
Yeah.
And I think there's just some people, and I don't know if it's the personality type or it's just the relationship dynamic, but I feel like some people can handle our stories or just the deep stuff better than others can. Yeah. I think that's just kind of how it goes.
There are friends that I have even today that I know there are certain things, there's some of my best friends, and there's some things that we just don't talk about because I know that they don't really know how to handle it. And that's nothing against them, or there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, not everyone can kind of process that stuff the same way. And I felt a lot of that when I was first opening up to people about it, because it's a lot easier to talk to somebody about it when they've maybe not themselves experienced it, but they know someone else. Like, oh yeah, I can empathize with you. I kind of understand where you're coming from. Whereas I mean, even talking to like my mom about it was super hard because she had no idea and she had never experienced anything like that. So it was hard for her to kind of wrap her head around it, and it didn't really make sense. And you can't really blame people for that, so you just have to try to.
How would you explain depression and anxiety to people who may or may not, know what that is?
It's kind of hard because everyone experiences it differently.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think it's really easy for people to not self-diagnose, but I think it's really easy to get kind of confused when maybe you're like, oh, I'm having a really bad day, or maybe somebody said something and you're like, oh, well, not that that's not the same thing as depression, but the way I've always explained it to people, for me, was just not feeling like myself at all, and losing interest in things that I loved so much, and just kind of.
It's just interesting. I've always just been curious what the goal is for supporters, who don't know what it is like. Is the goal to, you can't necessarily like make somebody understand something. Everybody can empathize, I feel like, at some level, maybe more so than others, with something that you're going through. For example, if you stubbed your toe at Disney World and I also stubbed my toe at Disney World, we would know what that felt like. Okay, yeah. It's a really dumb metaphor. I don't know why. Whereas if you're like, I stubbed my toe doing XYZ, it's sort of like, well, it's similar, but it is also different because you stubbed your toe in a different area. Or there's those little tiny differences that make your experience so unique. But there's also, you're not the only one who's dealt with XYZ. Mm-hmm. But you do have a unique experience. I don't know. There's kind of like that balance, So I've always just been curious, like, what the goal is with supporters, because like sometimes, if somebody just has no idea what anxiety is like how can we best equip those people to help their brothers, sisters, friends who have anxiety?
I mean, it's the same thing, because everyone has different needs in those situations.
Right.
Like, it varies from day to day. Some days I want to be isolated. I don't want anyone to talk to me. I'm just kind of like, I need to be by myself. And there are other days where, like, I absolutely need to be around someone. And
being on the supporter side of it, it's just really listening and trying to kind of tune into that person and feel out what their needs are at that time. And I think just in general, like letting that person know that you're there, whether that be physically or just being there via a phone call or a text or FaceTiming them, and letting people know that you are there and that you are willing to listen to, if you want to talk about it, you can. If you don't, that's fine. If you just want me to be here, if you just want to sit on the phone and cry for 20 minutes, I think it's very comforting being on the other side, knowing that, oh, well, if I'm not feeling my best, I have, this person I can turn to that I know will not judge me and will be there. And that's a huge, huge help. I think it's much more helpful than someone on the supporter side realizes. Even something that seems so small to them can be such a huge thing.
Communication is key.
Oh, yeah.
How did you end up in Arizona?
Yeah, I just knew I wanted something different. And I decided, I was living at home. I didn't have rent or all these bills to pay. So I was like, yeah, I can fly across the country for a week and just kind of hang out, explore, and see what it has to offer. And I don't think when I first came out here, it wasn't really, I didn't have the intention of moving out here. I don't know that it had even been really a thought really before, but I came out here and I just remember maybe 2 or 3 days into this trip where I was completely by myself for a week in a place that was very foreign to me. I just kind of had a moment where
It was a weird sense of relief I don't think I've ever really had before. And I just felt like I was kind of being pulled to the place, and that it just, I don't know, I just had a moment where it's like, this is where I'm supposed to be. This is the change that I need. And it just felt right. The timing felt right. And so I went back home and told everyone, told my family. It's like, so I think I'm moving across the country. And now I'm here.
If I was you, a couple years behind you, and I wanted to move somewhere, but I was maybe afraid to start my new chapter. Maybe I'm afraid I'm just running from my problems. What advice would you give to that person?
Trust your gut. I'm much more a feeling over logic kind of person sometimes, which, you know, backfires sometimes, but, you know, that's, you win some, you lose some. But I think if you feel like something is right and, you know, you're like, oh, I need a change, I always say trust it. And any change in life is scary. And maybe it doesn't have to be as extreme as moving across the country. Maybe it's just moving out of the house you grew up in, like away from family, or to a new city. And I don't know, I think just if you have the opportunity to do it, I would rather try something and regret it, or, you know, try something and have it not work out than not do it and regret it, or not know what the possibilities were.
I heard this guy say this thing. He's an artist, Andy Mineo. He went on Instagram and he was talking about the idea of making choices in fear or in love.
Mm-hmm.
And if you make a choice based out of fear, you probably shouldn't. Or you, like, does that make sense? Like, you should make a choice based out of love for yourself, for others, for whatever, versus like out of fear, because fear leads to regret.
Yeah.
But you didn't do that one thing.
Yeah, and I definitely understand that, and I get that it, you know, it can probably be hard to determine if you are trying to do, you know, if you are trying to run away, which that's a whole nother issue, trying, you know, that internal debate, like, what am I doing? Why?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was just, it was what felt right to me. And like I said, I just think if you have a feeling that strong about something, try it. At least see, because you'll never, that old cliche saying, you'll never know if you don't try. So I'd rather try.
So let's talk about kind of some developments that have been happening recently, which is why I wanted to have you on this podcast. Not only just celebrate this next stage of your life that you're about to enter into, and it's both very rocky and hopeful, and you know, it's just a very interesting time of your life. So I'm privileged to kind of share your story now and kind of, kind of get a little bit into this part. But, like, you found a match for like kidney transplant.
Yeah.
So, yay. But let's talk about kind of how you got to realize that and kind of how we led up to today.
It feels like it's been a very long journey. Mm-hmm. But when I think about it in the grand scheme of things, it's all happened within the last 2 years or so. And it really just kind of started by me going to the doctor, because I was, on this stretch of a couple months where I was getting sick a lot. And it wasn't just, a cold for 2 or 3 days and then it was gone. I was sick for 2 weeks at a time, and it was really, really bad. And so I didn't know if something was wrong. And so I just ended up going to the doctor and kind of telling him what I was experiencing and seeing if we could figure out, me being hopeful. It's like, maybe it's just allergies. And it was not. So he had suggested that we do, a round of like blood test and blood work just to kind of see where things were at. And it was sort of me coming to the office, doing it, and him just saying, okay, well, if anything comes up, I'll let you know in the next few days. If not, you're fine. And I remember getting a call the next day, and he just said, I need you to come in right now. Which immediately, I'm in a panic because, and that's all he said. And he's like, well, I don't really want to talk about it over the phone. I'd rather, it wouldn't be fair if they did. That's their thing. And so I was in a panic, and I went in, and he just kind of broke down, because we just did basic blood tests, so nothing really super specific. And he was kind of breaking it down. He's like, these numbers are way off. He's like, they're not just slightly off, they're like crazy. And so we started kind of dwindling it down and just getting more specific, because he was like, well, this is pointing to issues with this organ and like this system, and so let's just get more specific. And it was probably a little over a month that we were just going back and forth trying to figure out exactly what was going on. And then in the end, we end up figuring out that I have lupus, which any autoimmune disease in general is super hard to diagnose. I don't know why. I guess they're just, I don't know if it has to do with the testing or just because it's a very selective thing. I don't know, but they always said, yeah, it's kind of hard to diagnose. So from there, it was just, we'll start on these medications, see what we can figure out. If we can get it stabilized, you'll be fine. And in the beginning, we had mentioned, it was just a topic of conversation, oh, you may have to look into getting a kidney transplant. That could be a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, we don't know.
So was that kidney cancer or like kidney failure? Like what would they say?
Kidney failure.
Okay.
And that's what they told me. It was the lupus with kidney disease and failure. And
are those both like the two different things, or like would they be related to each other?
Related, yeah. So the failure was due to the kidney disease, if that makes sense. So it was kind of just a.
I didn't know if you had lupus and then that caused the kidney thing. So by getting the kidney thing, it doesn't really solve the lupus, but I'm just curious how that kind of works.
Yeah, and even right now, it's still not totally clear to me in the way
just
that
focus on the kidney right now.
Yeah, in the way that they've explained it, because I've done a lot of research over the last 2 years and learned a lot about it. And so lupus in general, it can affect so many different organs for different people. So mine just so happens to be the kidneys. But yeah, I was just kind of let's take these medications, see what we can do. And those weren't working and things were slowly dropping. So they said, okay, let's try testing out chemotherapy, see if that works. We did that for a couple months and it didn't work. And so that puts us at this past fall, and things were starting to get really bad really fast. And so my doctor turned me over to Mayo Clinic, and they said, you need to start getting evaluated now, because this kidney transplant needs to take place kind of ASAP, which it had been a thought in my mind. But when someone tells you, oh, this is something, don't think about it now, but know that it's probably it's like probably in your future, but we don't know when. And so now all of a sudden I'm told we have to start all this testing, we have to do this and this. And so I started it, and in the beginning they ask you, do you can go for a living donor, which will get done a lot faster, or you can be put on the list for a deceased donor. And that wait time is about 3 to 5 years in Arizona.
Oh, what?
And yeah, so I told them, I said, I will only take a deceased donor. I cannot ask anyone. I would feel too much guilt. I can't ask anyone to do that for me. And they sat me down and they said, if you sign that paper that says you want a deceased donor, you will not make it 3 to 5 years. And slapped me in the face. And it's never easy to hear those things, but also it was kind of like an oh shit moment where you're like, okay, well, they aren't kidding. Like, so we started all the testing, and then I had to start my campaigning like a politician. And you just kind of have to, and they told me, they're like, you're very fortunate in today that we have social media the way we do. It's like, I would type up something, put it out there, put it on Facebook, put it on Instagram, put it wherever, and you will be surprised. Like, you will be shocked at the number of people that will reach out to help you. So I did. I sat and I spent days trying to write this thing and trying to figure out how to word it. And yeah, I put it out there, and the number of people, it's been months and I still can't fully wrap my head around it, that many people reached out and were so willing to do, what I would never ask of anyone. And people that you would never expect, people I went to elementary school with, or former coworkers, and there was people that I just, very, very overwhelming. And so I went through all of my testing for about a week and a half to figure out, so they can figure out exactly what my match looks like and what needs to happen. And then we brought out my first donor at the beginning of February, and found out about 2 or 3 weeks ago that it was a match. So yeah, we're just kind of trying to make it through the next 2 weeks or so, and then planning on it taking place April 1st, which is about 2 weeks from now, I think.
What's your mindset like right now? Like, are you kind of high spirits? Are you excited? Are you nervous? Like, what's your mindset?
Absolutely terrified. Initially, when I found out we had a match, it was kind of a moment of just relief, and I was so happy that we, because, to be honest, kind of the only positive news I've had in the last 2 years. And so it was sort of that light at the end of the tunnel, like, okay, we just have to push forward a couple more weeks, and then things will get better. And that moment was kind of short-lived. They had told me initially, because there are other medical things we're dealing with and other things that have kind of popped up that are going to make it a bit more tricky. So, they've been very transparent and very honest with me, and said, the risk for complications is high right now. And yes, it's great that we have someone to match, but we can't guarantee that the next step we're taking will be a successful one. And I don't know, it just, after having that moment of feeling so much, I have to keep using the word relief, but I can't think of any other word, but that moment of just, things are going to get better, and then immediately you turn around and maybe not. And then, it sucks thinking that, someone that I love and care about so much is going through all of this to be my donor, and what if it doesn't work? And that's something that's been really, really weighing on me. It's just
feeling like a burden.
Yeah, there's been a lot of guilt with it, especially because my donor is my mom. So,
Wow.
It's like this person brought me into this world once, and now she's going through all this to save my life right now, and it could not work. And that's, it's very hard not to feel guilty and scared. And I know that she's scared and she's worried, but we don't really know right now. So you just kind of have to, and I think that's the part that's really scary. Is I got a call a couple days ago that right now things are really, really not good. It's sort of hard thinking that you don't really know what's to come tomorrow or the day after, and every day is kind of a gamble right now, and that's not really, it's not easy to process. But
I'm sorry that this is kind of it's just frustrating,
Yeah.
I can only hope that acceptance is coming of whatever is going to happen, I suppose. It is frustrating when you have something that's kind of far out, even if it's a week or two or whatever. There's all these different variables, and you don't know which way's up. There's just so much up in the air that all you can do is think, and all you can do is, and that sometimes can be the worst thing for us, people who have anxiety, or depression, and just like, well, this probably just isn't going to work. That could be super easy to think that. But I hope it works. It's like super exciting to have a match so quickly. And to have someone who's willing to give up one of their organs to you, I hope you can find some joy in knowing someone loves you that much. And, my goal or would wish for you would be for that guilt to go away, for you to say, this isn't, I don't deserve this, that my mom's done enough, That would be my wish for you, that not only just the surgery and all that stuff that there goes without complications, but that you'd be able to not feel like a project or like, oh, well, I'm, so low that I have to continually be helped, which might be a little hard because you mentioned previously that you don't like to be, a burden or helped a lot.
It's definitely been a humbling experience. I'm not someone who likes to take help from anyone. I think, just like you said, it's because it's very easy to feel like a burden to people. And I don't know, I think it's important to remember that everyone needs help at some point, even if it's something small or something really big. And it's hard to kind of put your pride aside and just lean on the people that want to be there for you. So it's definitely been hard.
What advice would you give to yourself?
Take advantage of what you have right now. Hearing everything I'm hearing and them telling me all these things, take advantage of every day you have. Take it day by day and make sure that you're doing everything you want to do. You're saying everything you want to say to people, and just don't hold back with anything. Like, now time to be sounds very, very cheesy, but just kind of live as fearlessly right now as you can, because you don't know how much longer you'll be able to do that. And I know that's really heavy and that sounds really bad, and that's honestly a reality that everybody faces. You don't, regardless of your situation, and people get so used to tomorrow, next week. No one's really guaranteed any time. So it's, you kind of have to just take it day by day and make sure that you're not holding back on anything. And
that's what, for me, it always ends up being well, if I'm not having the best time of my life right now, then I'm completely doing everything wrong. Because I'm not tomorrow. So if I'm not in Australia right now doing travel blogging, then do you get what I'm saying? I'm I'm totally messing up. Everything's wrong. I go there a lot.
I mean, and it's, it's not to say that you have to do something extreme every day. Like, I'm like, oh, I need to go skydiving today, or I need to go rock climbing, do something really crazy. It's just, even if it's like, oh, maybe I should text that one person and just make sure they know, like, hey, I appreciate you in my life and you're important to me, or, telling someone that you love them. And even stuff like that, I've been trying to be so much better about that, because I don't want, what if something happens and we had an argument the day before, or we haven't talked in a while, and then they're like, oh, there's so many things I wish I would have said. And it doesn't have to be this grand thing, although that stuff is fun.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, definitely mix it in when you can. If I could go skydiving right now, 100% I would do it. My doctors would probably kill me before I got the chance.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I mean, just, doing things you love and making sure that you're, I don't know, doing everything you want. Like, living with regrets is lame. No one wants to do that.
Yeah. There was, I went on a date with this girl a long time ago, and we were just sitting on the back porch, and I said something, maybe, I can't remember what it was, but I was saying maybe something along the lines of, like, not happy where I'm at or what I'm doing. And she's just like, why would you ever do something you don't want to do? And I was like, and this person is pretty, like, it wasn't like my mentor saying, like, it was just a random person, like, that just said, like, why would you do something if you didn't want to do it? Like, and maybe that was naive of them to say that, but it also, like, just has always stuck with me of, like, why am I doing what I'm doing?
It sounds like kind of the same way. And, like, I don't like letting people down, and I don't like saying no to people. So it's so easy to just, oh, fine, it's just one time. Like, I'll do this or I'll do that. But then it becomes this cycle where you're just so unhappy. You're like, why do I keep doing the things I don't want to do? And it's so much easier to put other people ahead of yourself. But sometimes you have to. It's not even selfish, but just realize that, hey, I'm the only one who has control. Like. It's very easy to con yourself into thinking I'm being selfish by saying no. You're like, wait, no, I'm just taking care of myself because I'm the only one that can do that. And it's, that's one of those, internal conversations you have at 3 a.m. when you're laying in bed and can't sleep, and you're, like, having a crisis. That thought process over and over again. Been there many times. Yeah.
Have you ever had somebody reach out to you saying, like, oh, thanks so much for sharing your story. Like, this is so awesome to watch you go through this. This is a really shitty situation. But you know what I'm getting at. Kind of like, oh, this is so, like, thank you for sharing your story.
Even when I initially had said anything about what was going on, the people that reached out were, people I haven't talked to in years. But I actually had someone, it was like 2 days ago, that had reached out to me through an Instagram DM, and we have never met. We don't know each other. And she just, sent me a message and said, hey, I know we don't know each other, but I came across your story somehow. And, I just want to let you know that you being so open and vulnerable and sharing all this is amazing. She's like, and her dad had gone through something similar and gone through a transplant and all these things. So she's like, it's hard, and I understand where you're coming from. And like I said, we've never met. And she's like, if you ever need anyone to talk to about it, I'm here. And I, because I can empathize with you. I've seen what it did. I saw what my dad went through, and even though I haven't experienced it, it's, and just, she's so sweet, and just like, it's nice to hear that I'm a pretty guarded person.
Yeah.
I feel like anyone who's, experienced like a lot of trauma or like grief or loss in their life is the same way. You kind of build up these walls, and it's because you've been hurt a lot and you don't like, if I can avoid it, I'm going to. But I don't know, the fact that I finally was like, okay, I need to do this if I'm open about it, even if it reaches one person.
Yep.
And one person says, hey, I'm so glad that you shared your story. Like, I'm going through something. Like we were talking, even if it's completely different, but there's some similarities. And I think it's just the most, like, humbling thing. It's really, it's nice to know that, doing something that's scary, like for me being open, especially with the internet. So everyone ever, it's a scary place.
Yep.
But, being so open and having complete strangers reach out is just, it's a weird feeling in the best way.
Yeah.
This is something I've always thought, I've had like this lifelong dream of writing a book or doing something, just like sharing my story. And same thing with this podcast in general. Like, what you're doing is amazing because you're just helping people share stories. And if it reaches one person or 100 people and it makes one person's life different, or kind of, it's
that pull you talk about in nature is that sort of what I feel like when I do these. It's like my chest gets warm.
Kind of, yeah, it makes you feel good when you know, like, I'm helping people by doing something that I love, and that's, this is really cool.
So now we are into the final 5.
Let's do it.
Number 1, would you rather be invisible or have the ability to fly?
Invisible.
Why?
This is going to make me sound so creepy, but
I know. It's a cool ability, but you can't seem non-creepy.
Yeah, you can't. I'm just going to accept it. Yeah, maybe it's a little creepy. Sue me. But I just feel like everyone thinks it. If they don't, they're lying. Yep. But, there's just certain things that you wish you could see and wish you could be there for. But I don't want people to know I'm here.
Right, yeah.
Even in a non-creepy way, but flying takes too much effort. I just wouldn't.
You get tired.
I get tired. I'm like, where am I supposed to fly? I mean, you'd save a lot on airfare. That would be nice. But
I'd get hit by a plane. I wouldn't be paying attention. Have my head.
Yeah, something would happen.
Whoops.
I'd get lost. There's no telling.
Your favorite vegetarian dish?
A restaurant here in Phoenix that is, I don't ever know if it's all vegan, or I'm pretty sure it is, but they have these mock buffalo, like, wings.
Okay.
They're so good. But if we're just talking about things that I can make at home, probably buffalo cauliflower. So, like, just fake wings.
Big spice, okay.
Yeah.
What is your motto or catchphrase?
I say yikes a lot, and I don't know why. And that's what people know. Like, something will happen, and everyone just kind of looks at me and like, yikes.
How do you say it? I always see you doing the drag out.
It's like a yikes. Okay. I don't know if that really counts as a catchphrase, but it's something that I say more often than I probably should. So we'll count it.
What is your favorite part about yourself?
This is what you do. You wait until the very end to pull out big guns. I see what you're doing. My ability to try to see the best in people. I don't know. I like to believe that most people are inherently good in some way. So I always take the time to actually get to know people and, not judge anyone beforehand. And I feel like that's something that maybe a lot of people don't do. So accepting of people and always trying to understand where they're coming from, and just seeing the best in people, even if they don't, because a lot of people may not see it in themselves.
What is your most proud moment?
There's 2 that I would say, and both of them we've already kind of talked about, but the day that I decided to finally open up about my struggle with mental illness.
Yeah.
Because that was something that I had been putting off for so many years, and when I finally did it, it was something I wasn't expecting for myself. So that, and the day I moved to Arizona, when I told people I was doing it, they were like, oh, okay, yeah, she's going to move. No one really thought I would do it, and I did it. I'm still here, so.
You did it.
I guess.
Yay. So now what I want you to do to finally close everything out, please pick a person, whoever you want. Janice from 8th grade, shout out for inspiring me to just pick up music, whatever you want. Like, you're just picking a person, shouting them out, and then you're going to share this part of the podcast with them so they kind of get a little bit of a nugget of encouragement. So,
well, first person that comes to mind, shout out to my brother, Brandon. My brother's my best friend. So he's, the most important person in my life. And he's helped me more in these last few months than I think he will ever understand. And I think he is genuinely the best person and has the best heart of anyone I've ever met. So
yeah,
just thank you to him for being him and always being someone that I can turn to, and vice versa. I'm very thankful for him, and luckily he's stuck with me forever because he's my brother.
Yay. Shout out. How can people get a hold of you or kind of support you, shout you out or whatever?
I've been pretty actively posting kind of about what's going on Instagram, and my handle just at Courtney.n.Scott. Really, really original. I'm pretty sure there's a link to my blog where I'm posting everything also in the bio of that. So I don't know, that's where I've been pretty open about everything. So that's probably the easiest way to follow along, or if anyone, I'm always open to chat to people about whatever. So
sweet. Well, it means the world for you to be on here, and we'll stay in touch. Just a lot of strength coming from that side of the phone. Goodbye, guys.
Hey everybody, this is Ryan from the Classic Buffalo Podcast. Wanted to take a second to talk about Anchor, how I'm actually making this podcast happen. Super happy that I'm partnering with them. So, Anchor is actually the easiest way to make a podcast. I've done my research. This is basically the best way. I promise. It's going to give you everything you need in one place for free, which is the best part. It's going to have tools, so you don't really need a fancy schmancy recording guy. Anchor's going to be helping you out there, and then they're going to distribute the podcast everywhere to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, everything. And then you can also make money with basically no minimum listenership, which is kind of rare. So hop on Anchor as soon as you can. Thanks.
And that's the episode. Thanks so much for listening, guys. I wanted to do a little bit of a debrief for you as we close out. Basically, what these will be is that we're going to be talking about the coronavirus for a little bit and what's been going on with me, what's been going on just in general, my thoughts. And then, obviously, just like every episode, I'll be talking about the guest. So, let's talk about Courtney for a little bit. Courtney, I wanted to talk with her about this pull that she had to Arizona because, for a while I've thought about moving to California, Texas, Arizona. A lot of my friends are in Texas, so I'm like, maybe I should just be in the same state. I've thought about Arizona just being a hotter place. Just being in a different climate might be kind of cool. And then California is just, the media and just in general has hyped it up, and, you wouldn't have to worry about snow. It's expensive, right? But, I don't want to run away from my problems though, and, that's why I was asking, is it the pull that makes you go, oh, I'm supposed to be here? And, what do most people experience? So they go to cities because they have a job. They don't. I don't know. Like that was just the whole process has confused me. And what's really tried to give me perspective is what's been going on. With the coronavirus. Like, would this be harder or easier with the fact that I'm in Indianapolis near my family, being able to be drivable distance to see them, but technically now with the quarantine, not being able to see them still. With the quarantine, it's like you can go to work and you can go to the grocery store or essential places, restaurants that are doing carry out. You can still walk around. It's not martial law necessarily, but, I was trying to ask her that just to get another person's perspective to kind of, sort of help inform my decision too. But I know a lot for you guys, where should I be? Where does my soul call me to be? And like, I think a good example of this is my brother. He needs to be in Portland, and he's a kind of a different person when he's here versus when he would be in Portland. And for a lot of different reasons, both practically and mentally, it's just been holding back going back. And I can't wait till he's out there because that's where he belongs. There's certain people that just belong in certain places. And my wish for you, listener, would be for you to find that place, whether that's close to family or not, just for you to be somewhere. The other just overwhelming thing I was feeling for Courtney is just confused as to how I can best support this person, because this is such a rough situation to be in. Courtney and I have talked a little bit more off air about her current situation. As of this week, she's been admitted to the hospital to kind of be in and out of doing that kinds of care 3 times a week, basically in and out. But I think she got discharged like on Friday. I could be totally wrong. Sorry, Courtney, that's not completely accurate, but recently she was admitted and then got back out. So that is some good news, but it's basically it's like a wait and see game, like having to continually go back until the coronavirus stuff is over, because technically her surgery has been labeled like basically non-essential, like kind of non-essential. Obviously it's essential for life probably, but it's on a lower priority as of right now. And I was hoping, you can always hope for someone to say, oh, I'm so positive amidst this potentially life-threatening thing that's going on, like not only with the coronavirus and just you may have it and you don't even know that, but on top of that, like your kidneys may be failing and all of these random things could be going wrong. And you could just hope that Courtney would just be this person, oh, I'm just so happy and I'm able to be joyful. And, that may or may not be the reality. I think that's just kind of grieving that, that's the reality, guys. There are people that are not going to be doing very well in the coronavirus, mentally or physically. If we don't practice social distancing and if we don't take these things seriously, we could end up infecting or hurting people that are actual at risk. Not only, hurting some of our parents and grandparents that are maybe more at risk for the coronavirus, but it's the people that, like Courtney, for example, that could suffer in those situations. Delayed care, and in the worst case scenarios, some people, like, that's where you'll see deaths really matter, because they could have gotten treatment, but because we had all of this systems and stuff is messed up, and like we're not social distancing, which, quick fun fact, we need to change to physical distancing. Verbiage is important in 2020. You can still socialize with people, but not physically. But she's trying her best. And I think that's what everybody has to do in this situation. Whether it's the coronavirus or your kidneys are failing or whatever, just try and just do your best. Life is going to hit you hard at some point, or it might be hitting you hard right now, but just do your best, and just know that you're not the only one who's dealing with fear. You're not the only one dealing with practical financial problems, fear that your parents or your family are just friends might get hurt or get sick. There's a lot of stuff that we're all going through at the same time. It's not just one area of the country like a natural disaster. It's the whole country and the whole world. And you're not alone in this. If you can do me a favor, reach out to Courtney either over Instagram or just follow along in her WordPress blog. That's the best thing you can do in this situation. Just to be there and support, make her laugh. Just if you know her, like specifically, please continue to reach out and support her in her love language in the best way you know how. As we kind of hopefully buy time and this doesn't get worse, so that by the time that this is over, she's able to go and have a transplant without a hitch with her mom. Shout out to her mom also for being an amazing mother and raising such an amazing daughter, and just also volunteering your freaking kidney. That's nuts. That's so cool. And that's something my mom would also do. And I have an awesome mom, and so it's always cool to see another awesome mom out there. But yeah, let's support Courtney in all of this. I think it would mean a lot to her just to send her a DM, just say, hey, thanks so much for sharing your story, because, that took a lot of guts to go and put something on blast here, sharing her passion for music, her story of trying to find a donor, which, fun fact, I don't know. Courtney's story kind of unexpectedly hit me into the importance of becoming a donor. Like I didn't really think about it. I just became one because I'm like, there's got to be a good reason for it. But hearing about the practicality of like waiting for a dead donor or like a lot, like all of that, and like I actually have my mom's friend goes around. I know the state. Might be the country, but she works for like the donor network. And she goes to like schools to kind of talk to kids about becoming a donor. So I'll do a little bit of shout out. Please sign up to be one if you aren't, or at least have that conversation. If you aren't old enough to kind of have that conversation and kind of talk with your parents about that in the off chance someone who's under like a minor who's listening to this, but become a donor, or at least have that conversation to see if you're eligible. I don't know. I don't need to know more about that if you're like have to become eligible for that, but that's just another thing you can do. But guys, keep fighting. I think today Trump just announced, at least for America, that we'll be kind of amongst this stuff for the rest of the month, not the rest of the month, for April, most of April, like till the end of April. So, I don't know. This week was a little bit better. I've kind of somewhat adjusted to Skyping as much as I can. When I go on dates, I do some Skype dates, but just phone calls as much as I can with my family. I have gone to see my family like once or twice or whatever just to check in and stuff, but for the most part it's been FaceTime, it's been Cards Against Humanity, it's been playing Fortnite and Call of Duty and Skyping with my friends and taking walks, rollerblading, but distancing socially as much as I can, physical distancing. Start correcting myself, but if you'd like to be on an episode and be like an awesome person like Courtney was, please feel free to reach out to me over Instagram, or maybe somebody who might want to share their story. It would mean a lot, I'm sure, for yourself and for other people to hear about what's going on, what have you been through, what are you passionate about. We can talk about everything from soup to nuts, ducks, sports, photography, kidney transplants, whatever you want. We're talking about it here on Classic Buffalo. So please hit me up over the Instagram. We'll do a Zoom call. We'll do that, record it, and we'll change the world one person at a time. So depending on some recording things, I might be able to get back to 2 a week. But again, I'm just trying to play it conservative just so I can at least continue to put out content for you guys. I'm still here for you. But we'll be doing it 1 time a week for now. Might be going back to 2, but I'll go back to 2 for sure, like after all this is over for sure. But for now, we're just doing 1 so I can continually to guarantee to put content out. So stay in there, guys. 1 more week, 1 day at a time, 1 hour at a time. When you take it that slowly amount of time, it'll be over before you know it. So I love you guys. Bye.